So I thought I would share a Joey update because he has so many social media fans. This is either ride 9 or 10. I'm going to have to go verify with the calendar. And I like to spend about up to the first 10 rides in the round pen. I feel like it really helps me get more leg control and steering before we go into the bigger arena. There's quite a lot that I feel like I can get done in the round pen still, even though it's just shy of 60 feet and he's a pretty big horse. But I do a lot of circles within the round pen circle and just teaching them how to shape their body a little bit. So essentially from the get-go, I start to, before I get on, they've already been introduced to the snaffle and the driving rein. So they have an idea of how to give to the snaffle with their nose and how to follow their nose with their body. So they've already got a general idea of that. And like I was starting to say from the get-go, I pretty much start to expect them to learn to stay off my inside leg. A lot of horses, when you first get on them, they don't know what your leg cues are. It's hard to get them really prepared for that on the ground. But they do a lot of diving with their shoulder down, and they don't really naturally want to move from their back end. As a lot of us know, they carry about 60% of their weight naturally on their front end. So it's easier for them initially to want to turn with the shoulder versus turning from the hind end. And of course that comes in time and in strength building. They don't just suddenly be able to move from their back end. You have to teach them. So from the beginning, I like to start adding in my inside leg cue so that they don't fall to the inside. That inside leg cue helps them keep their inside shoulder up, which actually, mechanically eventually becomes into the outside rein. And then with half halt with the outside rein, you can get them to shift their weight more to the back end. So this is starting to prepare them for being able to move from those cues. But yeah, what I'm wanting him to do is to shape up through his rib cage and keep the shoulder up with the inside leg. And what happens a lot, especially for him, but for babies at this stage, is they don't know how to keep their body wrapped around my rib cage and the shoulder up and stay soft in their face all at the same time. So it's kind of a lot of bouncing from one side to the other. Okay, we've got the rib cage, but now you're not soft in the corner of your mouth, or I've got your mouth soft, but our shoulder is drifting to the outside. So it's a lot of just bouncing back and forth between those leg and hand cues. So what you watched with him going around this first direction was I like to kind of divide the round pen up into 4 circles within the main circle. So I'll get them going around feeling soft and wrapped around my inside leg as best they can at this stage. Around the perimeter a few times when they're feeling like they're kind of in between those aids pretty well, then I start doing these essentially quarter, or for his case, kind of 1/3 the size of the round pen size circles within it. And that helps teach them to keep their shoulders up without just following the rail, and guiding and steering and all that fun stuff. So I do that both directions at the walk, usually before I move into the trot. And then once we go into the trot, we're working on the same basic things. And if you're watching closely, you'll see here a few times where we have that kind of bouncing between the aids, like I was mentioning. Like here, he's being soft in his rib cage, but he wasn't wanting to be soft in his face. Or he's following my hand, but the outside shoulder drifts out. So, yeah, right here, I'm trying to use my hands in conjunction with my leg because he's a little better than 50% on the cue of my inside leg at this point. But because I don't have spurs on and I don't want to resort to using a really big, kicking leg aid, I have to use my hands to kind of guide him back out towards the rail as a reinforcement for the leg cue. So an important thing to note with that is when you are trying to help them with your hands to go back drift more towards the outside of the rail, like there, my hands don't cross, my inside hand doesn't cross over his neck or the center line of the horn. And this, I kept this part in because I went to go change directions, and the moment that I started to bend his nose the opposite direction, he wanted to just turn from the shoulder first. So I abandoned it the first time and went and attempted it again, and that second time I was much happier. And actually that does help. It's like reverse psychology for them. If you are saying, hey, I want to go this way, and they dive down and you go, oh no, we're going to go the other way now, it will actually start to help them keep the shoulder up better, because they'll, oh, I just dove down the shoulder this side, that didn't work, I really quick had to go the opposite way. So anyway, I thought that was a unique piece to keep in this video. Now we're into the lope. Took a couple of attempts to get a good lope departure. I edited some of it out just for the fact that this video would have been 25 minutes had I kept everything in. But his main thing, he's a really well put together horse, but he, as a baby and he's still growing, doesn't have a lot of strength or coordination. So especially picking up the lope, we've been working on it since he's been here on the ground, even just to pick it up fluidly and correctly. And then of course that takes time under saddle to get that to happen too. So both ways into the lope departure, I have to really help him with having his bend through his body and his face before asking for it. Otherwise, he will actually go against the aids, bend to the outside, and pick up the outside lead. So it takes a lot of work to get him set up properly so that he picks up the correct one. But it's important to me, we're far enough along in his rides that he knows to pick up the lope. So we have the forward cue, but I want to start teaching his body good muscle habits, so we don't just, spend weeks loping around on the wrong lead, him thinking that that's acceptable just because he's going forward, and now we've built all this muscle and training in his brain to think that that's okay. So anyway, I could have saved a little bit more of loping in there, but we really only go maybe 4 circles at a time right now because I want them to be correct and I want him to build strength. Sometimes when he's getting tired, he'll lose it on the back end and crossfire. And like I said, I wanted to build good habits, so I usually try and break him down to a trot before I feel that he's getting too weak to continue. I decide to cool him down here with working a little bit of a pivot. People that know me personally know that I personally ride reiners as my primary focus, and cross train in Western dressage. So this horse is going to be more an all-around horse. He's not bred or built for reining, but I'm sure his owner is going to want him to be able to correctly pivot. So he needs to learn more forward and fluidity from his body and to be more established on the leg cues before we really turn it into a true pivot. A lot of horses want to suck back, and they'll find some resistance in their body, either through the shoulder, the rib cage, or his mouth. So really right now I'm just reinforcing all of the other cues from the ride itself, and then trying to incorporate that down into a slower pivot. I was happy with the shoulder movement, that direction, which is why I ended up changing directions now on him. A lot of people really think that the pivot they can just teach from a standstill, and in my opinion, coming from the reining world, they need to be forward thinking in it. So that's why you didn't see me stop him and then just push the shoulders around. I want him to be thinking about stepping through the pivot with his inside hind leg and then stepping laterally with the inside shoulder across, while maintaining softness in his body, which is a lot to ask for a horse at barely 10 rides right now. But that's why we just start it early with baby steps. Just there you go, a little bit, those just 2 steps with the inside shoulder while we maintain forward movement. Then I decided to go do a little rollback exercise on the fence just to reinforce the lateral movement of those shoulders and stretching the pectorals. This rollback into the fence exercise really helps them learn to kind of stay more on their butt and open the shoulder stepping laterally. And I just felt like I needed a little bit more reinforcement of my outside leg cue when I did my little pivots, that I could use the fence to help me do that. I really liked his halt. We were working on that a few rides prior. This time I didn't need to ask again because he halted well from his back end and didn't pull on my hand. So all in all, he's a good boy. I think he's getting pretty close to being able to go out and start working in the big arena. And that is Joey's update.